Testing. And I'm going to get a big echo until I stop. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Wow. As you guys might be able to tell, I have a big mess on my hands. Because I've been working in my garage for the past 2 weeks. I've actually been rebuilding my shop. And by rebuilding, I really just mean a thorough cleaning and reorganization because it definitely needs it. Although I do need to expand it and work on that. But that's for another time. It's been such a giant mess, I haven't been able to actually work on the multiple projects that I need to get out. And I'm sorry for my custom build customers. Well, looks like Mateo's already off as soon as you got on. Well, that's such a bummer, but I guess you won't be missing too many things. Well, you'll be missing a lot of things, but nothing important. So I have a lot of different stuff to do, so I'm just gonna kind of do it, I guess. So what are you guys all up to today? First thing I'm gonna do is going to press with my soldering iron these brass nutserts into this 3D printed part. This is an onyx carbon fiber mix, so it's a very strong part, and it can be, you can print threads. I mean, the threads aren't super great, so it's good to usually to tap it, and it does tap really well. So if you're making like water cooling pots, like reservoirs and pump tops and stuff, this stuff taps extremely well for that. But at the same time, if you want to go the extra mile, brass nutserts are the professional way to go. So I have my iron plugged in. I'm gonna press these in. Mo2Mo1Mo asks what CPU block this, and this is the Asetek 545 LC. And I was going to be replacing this cooler for a small form factor build. This is, I forget which Dynatron model this is. It looks, I'm not actually sure what it is. But it's T318 copper with a vapor chamber, probably from Dynatron. I think I just said that though. And it works fine for the application for the Xeon, but I'll figure out a way to squeeze in the Asetek if I use this power supply, which I have, this old Meanwell power supply, which will work perfectly with a Pico unit. So that's why this is out. So I just have to make that work. All right, my iron is hot, so you must strike while the iron is hot. And I'm pressing in these M3, I guess you'd call them nutserts? I'm not actually sure what the appropriate term for them is. But they're made of brass. And basically I printed these cavities in my part, right? And the brass nutserts have these knurls on them, and the soldering iron heats up the brass, and which melts into the plastic and surrounds it and bites really, really well. So you have a very super strong grip for your screws. Actually went the wrong way on that one, but that's okay, because it's going to bolt right to the wood faceplate. All right, now I need the complicated ones. These are the PCIe tab connectors for the GPU. To kind of press them in at an angle. I might need to get a vise out. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get a little vise from my shop, prop this up, so I can get them in there nice and straight. Eli says, where can I get these brass nutserts? You can buy them pretty much anywhere, dude. You can buy them on eBay, Amazon. I get mine on McMaster. but you can buy them anywhere hardware is sold. It's important to note too, they make them for different kinds of plastics, like acrylics or 3D printed. These M4 ones I have are actually made for 3D printed material. So they go in, they taper down, so you can set them in your hole, then you press them in and it sticks really well. These other ones I have are actually for acrylic, but they work really well, and they're not really that much different at that size anyway. All right, now I can attempt to get this at the right angle. I'm gonna hold it with my steel pliers, which may not be the best because it's gonna soak some heat away from the brass, but my theory is that the brass is going to heat up a lot faster than the steel is going to. I just need to get this started. Here we go. Oop. Come on. Come on, gotta get you nice and straight. Seal the deal. Perfect. All right, I can get my next one. The vise is actually one of the older tools I have, but it's mostly just dirty and neglected because it's not the kind of vise I use much anymore. This is a vise for a drill press, and I bought two of them back when I first started buying tools, thinking that I'd use them to align ends of like wood or aluminum or something to attach, but there turns out there's actually tools for that, so I don't really use them that much. And then I use my actual big boy vise that's bolted to my 450-pound workbench. That's bolted to my wall of my shop for most vicing. I have many vices. This one's tricky, tricky, tricky. Come on, no, I want you to go in even. I want you to go in even. Very nice. Very nice. Whew. Dr. Boban says that I've made the smallest mini ITX case in the market, so now I need to make the giantest case on the market. And interestingly enough, one of the designs I want to do, I'm thinking about, I don't really know how I'm going to launch it, or how I'm going to go about raising funds and interest for it, but I am making a case that has the largest capacity for putting stuff in on the market, but it's a super new design that really isn't used anywhere. It's a completely original design, and it's very small. So you can stick all the stuff you could in a Corsair 1000D, which I love, but it's, I think, half the volume of a 1000D. It might be even less than half the volume. So, plus it has more mounts and stuff for the outside as well. So, I'm interested in bringing that to market, but market would be people that have a lot of money. Like, I guess, people for the 1000D, too. That's not really a cheap case. Thank you, Tumor, for, again, trying to start us off with the Super Chat. Workbench goals. I'm sure that you have some. I definitely have a lot of them. I don't even know what they are, but I'm always trying to improve my workbench, both here and in my shop. And I'm actually wanting to make, like, a video sometime, giving you guys a tour, not because I do things the right way, but because I do things the wrong way, and would definitely like feedback. And if you ask the internet for feedback, they are happy to give it to you in spades. Paolo says, have you tried using an all-in-one with the pump integrated into the radiator for case clearance? I've seen that a couple vendors now do that. Is it NZXT that does that to get around Asetek's patent? I'm not exactly quite sure where they stick it. I think that overall, you want a pump and a reservoir separate for the best possible performance, or at least noise reduction. But there's more interesting ways to do that, I think. I think we've not exhausted our ways of doing that. And I think that the next big thing around the corner for small form factor, I've actually been helping out a couple very talented designers on smallformfactor.net designing pumps that are integrated into the CPU block. Now, not all-in-one pumps, not all-in-one systems, but actually, large, heavy-duty pumps with real big, nice CPU blocks with microfins. And I think that's going to be the next big fad in small form factor. David the Doom says, thanks for the video about the external radiator. Oh yes, the Watercool's giant MoRa. That's an awesome product. Currently tinkering with an external rad for my in-case build. Would like to manage an internal pump plus a 240mm rad as well. I think that external radiators can be a lot of fun and make a lot of sense. That's one of the reasons I think external power bricks make a lot of sense. People like the idea of all-in-one, and certainly when all-in-ones make sense, that's awesome. But for the most part, people buy a computer and they park it on their desk. And if they're doing that, then it's not really a big problem to neatly put the power brick and or cooling somewhere else out of sight, especially when you can remove heat from your computer case and you can make it easier to work on and easier to maintain. And a radiator, they get really, really dusty, so it's nice to have that outside the computer anyway. And you can still have what's beautiful on your desk, and you can still sometimes move it between location very easily, but you don't necessarily have to have it all inside your computer case. In fact, for my setup, I used to do a lot of gaming on my TV, my plasma, because I think it produces some of the best colors out there. I have a really old school plasma, so I would move it to the living room. Plus, I think it's more fun to play with friends in the living room on the couch. So what I would do is I'd actually have two power bricks, one in my office and then one plugged in the TV. So I just had to pick up the actual computer box, move it over there, and plug it in. And I also have a lot of customers, I know because they tell me, take their computer to work and home. They commute with it or to school sometimes, and then they have two power bricks as well. And that makes the weight of the system a lot less as well. So that's pretty cool. Okie dokie. So now I'm going to take these giant M4 screws, and I made a kind of mistake. The way that these 3D printed, I don't know what happened exactly, but they didn't print perfectly round. They're kind of oblong or oval, I should say. They're almost like slots. And that's odd because that normally doesn't happen to me. But I'm going... Oopsie. I'm going to take the part that I want to put on here, and I'm going to line them up, because I have some room to do this and seal the plastic around it, but I want them to actually line up with the hole. I want the part to... So this one can probably stay where it's at, but this other one needs to slide down more. Concentrating. Once I get it pretty much flush with the surface, I give it a little bit of twist against the knurl, so I can really get it in there good, because there's actually two knurls going in opposite directions and a little slit between them. So I think that's probably proper technique, but there's not really any instructions when you get them, but it's definitely helpful. The only thing I don't like about gaming on the plasma, the old school plasma, is that you have burn-in like crazy. So if you're playing a game that has like a HUD, it's gonna stick on there after you turn it off. Luckily, unlike other TVs, plasma burn-in goes away. I don't think you can permanently burn a plasma. I'm not a TV expert though. But I love that TV. If you offered me a chance to have any other TV out there and you'd exchange it, I wouldn't trade it. I haven't seen anything that has that picture that I really, really like. And it's all subjective. I'm not saying it's the best screen out there. You might look at it and go, ugh, but it's my favorite. I love how it does the colors. They're slightly muted. They're not just super vibrant and popping and rich. It just looks very cinematic. Mr. Zombie asked what I'm making. That's a great question, but I don't actually, not making any one thing right now. This goes to a custom Mini ITX case. Finished making these carbon fiber spine panels for it. These took 4 of them in total, 12 hours to make. It was absolutely grueling, and I had the water bath, and it had a big leak in it, and I had to keep patching the leak because I didn't want to stop and re-zero because I wanted these edges to be perfect. That was last Monday. That's why I didn't have the stream, and it was I'm just glad that it's over. H. Nito says, what plasma? You've got a Pioneer Kuro and you love it. I really don't know. It was, it's a 55-inch Samsung. And it wasn't, I don't want to say it was one of their first plasmas, but it's like a first generation plasma. And it's amazing, amazing. It was my wedding present from my boss to me. He doesn't know that, but that's what I bought with the paycheck. For our wedding. My wife was a big gamer, and so we would play a lot of video games together, and it was awesome. And I got married, and then I think that was the last day that we ever played video games together. She tricked me. Okie dokie. All right, I'll do the bottom ones. Third time's a charm? Yes. Master asks if I use the Markforged to prototype cases, and I wouldn't really say cases so much. It's not really useful to prototype cases like I would need to, because it's not going to produce good parts that translate well to sheet metal. But it is great for prototyping certain types of things. If you're making particular pieces out of it, though, it is a great investment because it actually produces usable parts. Unlike, I don't really know if there's any other 3D printer that can. I mean, there's a lot of technologies out there and I don't keep up on it. But the parts that I can print on the Markforged, a little bit of bowing. Yeah, it's still gonna work though. I might have to sand that down. Can be made really rigid, and the finish quality is pretty good for the type of printer that it is as well. So really what it's used for, like what their use case is tooling or like soft jaws, fixtures, that kind of stuff for CNCs. So if you need to make a part, instead of actually having to machine everything out of aluminum, you can just print the jig out of the Markforged carbon fiber, and then that saves a ridiculous amount of time. Now, is it going to be as stiff as something like an aluminum fixture? No, but depending on what you're machining, it could be useful. This piece is actually going to be sandwiched between carbon fiber and a walnut bezel, so how it looks doesn't necessarily matter too much. I personally have never used LN2. I kind of know where my limits are. I have a friend, Travis Jank, who is professional overclocker, pro overclocker, and he uses a lot of it. He uses liquid helium, and it's always fun to watch him battle it out with other pro overclockers. So I've gotten my fill of that experience and being there and seeing what's needed, but I have never personally used it. I also was kind of in the circle that was involved in the pots and the kingpin controversy surrounding that, but I've never personally used it. Norman asks, have I ever considered making a short 2U or 3U rack mount water-cooled gaming system? Actually, I've built a lot of them, but not for gaming, for live streaming, but you could use them for gaming because they're pretty much the exact same components. Hey Rod, how you doing, man? Good to see you. All right, so my plan here, I'm pretty sure I took into account the fact that my I/O plate has depth to it. I'm not sure if I planned on modding though, because I've forgotten since I designed it, the nutserts and sanding them down, grinding them down, or if my plan was to modify the pop-in plate. But either way, that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to have to pull that out. And grind it down. And hopefully I'll be able to use some plastic, but I actually do have a product for that. This is by JB Weld. It is plastic bonder. It's kind of like an epoxy for plastics. It's black. I can mix it in there. I can go around the edges if I need to and seal it up. That's if I don't have enough plastic to reform that. Hey Embellis, how you doing? Hey Aiden, yeah, I think that plan could work out pretty well. I also would like to, well, I don't know. It's worked out really well for me, my external radiator build, because I can use it to test out all of my liquid cooling builds. Super nice, super neat. The quick disconnects, it keeps the fluid, and the reservoir is so tall, I don't have to worry. I just plug it right into the new system, and there's enough liquid to fill the loop. It's totally awesome. I would totally recommend it, especially if you have to bench a lot of systems or change out systems. That's a great thing about it. It's a very expensive setup, but if you think about it, you know, you're not replacing that, and you don't have to buy multiple radiators, multiple pumps if you use multiple computers one at a time. I haven't used that RAM, Dominic, but I have used the Strix B54i, and I do not recommend that motherboard. I've only used 2 of them, but I had problems with both. There's weird type of technical problems with it. And I don't think it was a bad board. I think it's just, I won't recommend that board, which is odd because I absolutely love their Intel boards, the Strix Intel boards. They are amazing. And that's pretty high praise, I think, coming from me for an Asus product. I'm doing all sorts of stuff in Embellis. I don't even really have a particular plan. Trying to clear off the projects that are on this table, basically. Or at least get done with this stage and move on to the next one. All right, so I can't do these two. I'm going to actually go I'm going to grind them down on the sander. And press them in. And to do that, I think the prudent thing to do probably a terrible idea. I'm not sure how to handle it. I'll probably use this M4 screw, set the depth, and then just push it against the belt. No idea if it will work or not. But we'll be back in a minute. Probably will take 2 minutes. It won't take long, if it works at all. That worked incredibly well. I used the bolt, and I threaded that on to my bolt, these nutserts, and then I used a pair of pliers to back it up so it wouldn't just unthread itself. And we have now shorter nutserts, custom length. These sand really well. Even with the fine finishing sandpaper, they sand really well. So if it sticks up above your wood or something a little bit, no big deal. But that aluminum oxide belt sander, I mean, it takes it out. I didn't get this quite shallow enough, but that's okay. Still going to work for my purposes. Very nice. Is there a dual NVMe M.2 motherboard I recommend? Well, I'm guessing that you're asking for AMD, not for Intel. If it's Intel, then it's any of the Asus Strix boards, depending on your chipset. For AMD, I do not believe that you can actually run the drives at full speed if you run 2 of them. I think it will cut down your PCI Express to your GPU to like 4x, which may not really be a problem, to be honest, depending on what kind of priorities you want to put for your storage or your GPU. But just be aware, it's not the same as Intel where you can actually run 3 at full speed. both 2 drives and 1 GPU. And I don't know of another board besides the Strix that has 2 for AMD. Other people might, but I don't. Aiden says, I thought you could add a small section on the back of that external radiator build, the same width and height as the reservoir and pump. Would just add a couple inches and would be a portable PC. So you're saying add the reservoir and pump to the actual chassis itself? And then have the radiator be external? I'm not sure what the benefits would be for that, because you're going to have a radiator anyway. But what I would do is I'd actually make a custom bezel for it, and then I'd put the pump inside the bezel, and also have the bezel be a reservoir. That's one of the ideas I was playing around with. But you might not need dual NVMe, because the 970 Evo has dropped ridiculous amounts in price, and you can buy the 2 terabyte version of it for $400, I believe. It might be $499. I might be wrong on that. But if it's $400, that is darn good. Darn good, in my opinion. $200 for NVMe per terabyte. Good stuff. Darren says, what do you think about the crazy new 750 watt SFX power supply from Corsair? Do you think that in the future all power supplies will go SFX? They already went SFX for me a long time ago. I am never buying an ATX power supply again, and I can't remember the last time I actually... Oh, I do remember the last time I did. It was for that build that I took apart on the stream that was all dusty. That was a long time ago. But I've used SFX ever since, and if I need a really big one, I get the SFX-L from Silverstone. So... for me, yes, I do believe they all will, because there's no point in having a big ATX power supply. I don't think. That's just my opinion. But I'm hoping that I won't. I mean, I don't even use them when I use them for normal builds where people buy a normal computer case and people don't contact me to buy a normal computer case. But otherwise, I'll use something custom. I'll use the little itty bitty power supplies, like the HD Plex 400 AC, which is amazing. So super high efficiency, breaks down the power supply into components that you can put throughout your computer case. That's the way I think to go. All right, let's do this side. So dirty. I just want to hold it upright. Those of you guys who do 3D printing, I took these parts off my base, and taking them off, I warped them a little bit. I'm thinking about putting them in the oven for a little bit. Just a little bit, just like 200 degrees or something, and then try to put them under a bunch of books or something to get it flat again. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about that. Also, I'm not exactly sure why it warped to begin with. I let it fully cool. Maybe I need to use more school glue, put some water on it or something, and just try to peel it off axially instead of radially. Not sure. Oh, so you're saying like have a little teeny tiny cooling system built inside that can support it under web browsing, and then when you want to do gaming and stuff, you plug it into your big one. So if you take it portable place. Yeah, that is something that I would definitely want to do, and I've been thinking about it, and I haven't come up with a good solution yet. But I definitely do want to do that. It's interesting to note, though, that you can use like a 9700K, right, without any real cooling on it. You can try this for yourself. Unplug your CPU fan and see what happens. It's going to downclock and downclock and downclock and downclock until it gets to be about 105 degrees Celsius, and then it will shut off. But there are some computer cases I've run. I've gotten when I worked for a live streaming company that built live stream boxes. I had a fan failure on a customer system, And they're like, it's so slow. I can't do any video streaming with this anymore. Fix it. And they'd been trying for like a week, and they've been running it. They don't ever unplug their boxes. These are 24/7 units. And so they send me their box, and it had been running for a week without a fan. And it just would downclock itself to like, 500 megahertz while streaming. Otherwise, while just using the internet, it was peppy enough. It was kind of slow, but so you might be able to get away if you have a big enough cooling block on that darn thing where you actually don't need it for web browsing. And Bella says to reduce warp and you can insulate the printer. I want to be clear, it did not warp in the printer. It printed it off. It was beautiful. The printer is insulated. It's heated and everything. It's a very, very fancy printer. It was when I peeled it off, I ended up damaging the part. So that was on me. I thought I let it cool long enough before peeling it off, but I think I just bent it up too much while prying it off with my thingy. But I don't know how to fix it. So if you think that my oven idea is good, let me know. Maybe link me some YouTube. Send me an email. No, it is a good idea, Aiden. And if we can come up with that, that's like a holy grail for me. It's not literally a holy grail for me, but it is a good idea and something that I'm interested in. And I have all sorts of little weird concoctions and stuff, but making them work and having the time to make them all actually work, production level is not something I can spend all my time on. But I do make it. Sometimes I get as far as making it work, like this kind of work. Well, I didn't drop that on my toes, so that's a success. Did I get all these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, I'm gonna bolt these on for right now. See where we stand. I believe that this one goes here. No, that one goes to the power supply, so this goes here. I have to sand that one down. It is a good idea, Adam. That's what I was trying to say. So if you took away from that I thought was a dumb idea, no, it is a very good idea. And again, I would try to do it using the bezel rather than the back. If you're talking about specifically the Mini, I mean, you can do it however you have planned on a different case. Is it Vicimus or is it Visimus? But I am just doodling. That's all I'm doing right now. I had stuff on my desk. I'm just trying to get some of it out of the way so I can test a GPU. That's really all I need to do. I want to see what my warpage is exactly to see what I have to work with when heating this back. It might be a good idea to CNC out my carbon fiber motherboard tray, my spine, and smack that in there. And then maybe I can use a heat gun and get these parts true again. Because again, they're going to be sandwiched between other parts. So that may be an idea. Well, it's an idea. I don't know if it's going to be a good idea. Thoughts on direct die cooling for the L9i? Thinking about grabbing one of the die guards on AliExpress for 20 bucks. The thing about that is that you need, what am I doing? Don't want that. Is that you need ultimate precision. And generally speaking, although great stuff and I shop there all the time, AliExpress is not a place to buy ultimate precision products, in my experience. Again, it's one of my favorite places to buy stuff, but I would say give it a shot for science. Because then I won't have to, and that would save me money and time. And fill us in. Yes, pal, that's my life. And because I'm not an engineer, just a inventor, whatever, tinkerer, that happens to me way too much. And I guess it's better to usually what happens to me is that I will get them and I'll try to get them on the machine CNC'd out. I'm like, wait, this is not going to work the way I had planned. But that's a better stage than actually getting them all machined and then hours later realizing it's not going to work. So I have made some errors here that I need to fix. So on this side I have a little bit of a lip, a little bit of a gap. This side doesn't quite press up against the edge. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to handle that. Maybe what I'll do is I'll get some brass screws and I'll brass screw these in, and then with the carbon fiber spine attached, I will put my soldering iron on there, and then I'll just try to walk it over just slightly so I can get them flush. Because these parts, I CNC'd these parts precision, so they're not, I probably should have done an overage a little bit. That way I could have sanded everything down. That would have been a lot easier to get it flat. Just marked it and say, okay, take off a millimeter here, but I didn't. So I'm probably going to have to modify my holes. Everything has been designed in CAD, so I know they're supposed to be in the right spots, but the problem is, in real life, things don't always work out perfectly. Yes, Embellis, laser cutter is amazing. That's where I got started making computer cases. Well, I made everything by hand to start with. Like a lot of the cases on my website, which you can go look at, the front page, those are all made by hand. But eventually I would start incorporating a friend's laser into it. And I am going to buy one because I need one for my shop. But getting the right one is complicated. You know, I could buy a cheap Chinese one and just work on acrylics and stuff like that. But I'm actually looking into investing in a fiber laser because I'd like to go back and manufacture myself if I can, if it makes sense. But, you know, fiber lasers cost as much as a house, my house anyway, so kind of expensive. I do have a plasma setup, and I am building myself a plasma table for some particular kind of parts, but you do need to do a lot of cleanup on them. And of course I have the CNC, which is used for carbon fiber, which is the only thing that's going to cut the carbon fiber. But yeah, I'm trying to do this as much as possible, get as much automation as possible so I can start making stuff in-house as much as possible. Dice Channel, is that how you say your name, man? Asked me what CAD program I use. And the simple answer is Fusion 360, and it's amazing. And it's revolutionary, really, and I recommend it very much. The long answer is I started off I was an artist to start with. I was doing game design, levels, stuff like that, level design. So I had a really good mastery of the applications that you would use to do that kind of artwork. So Maya, 3D Studio Max, and the Unreal Engine, Hammer, that kind of stuff like that. And then I kind of moved to SketchUp when I was doing mock-ups and stuff because it was easier to get something out in SketchUp. And there was a big library of computer parts. And SketchUp may be still a good suggestion for people that are weekend warriors for designing this stuff because learning Fusion does take a little bit of time, but not really a lot. Then I moved on to Inventor because I was like, okay, I'm going to do this seriously. And that's a serious program. It's also kind of easier to use than traditional CAD programs. But when Fusion came out, Fusion's too good to be true. Fusion 360 is too good to be true. It has everything built into it, but instead of big CAD programs, everything built into it, they're impossible to learn because they have too much stuff. It's very, very simple. I mean, it strips everything away that's complicated. It presents it in order from the very start, from your planning, your sketching, all the way down to manufacturing, and then rendering. It's amazing. It's life-changing. And it is free for hobbyists. So that's awesome. So great job, Autodesk, for revolutionizing the industry. And this is really high compliment, I think, but it has the only productivity software I've ever used that's not by Apple that uses like an Apple product. I mean, it's really simple to use. So, yeah, there you go. There's a long answer. Blender is awesome too. Like if you were doing 3D modeling, Blender is the way to go. Like if you're doing artwork and stuff like that. You do have a lot of that capability in Fusion, but I would use Blender for that. But if you're trying to make something, then I would switch to Fusion 360. Dill2749 says, I'm actually using a small toolbox for a small form factor full water-cooled PC. That's very cool. The radiator and fans are on the bottom with cutouts, a sandwich between a layout like the Dan with a distro play at the top as a reservoir. That sounds really cool. Is it like a toolbox that has special meaning to you, or just a nice one that you had laying around, or did you specially pick this out because it had a good format? Because if the last one's true, you might want to let people know about it so they can attempt the same kind of thing. Something else I'm also looking into, I'm in a discernment process right now of trying to figure out where my business is going to be, what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to specialize in, because the manufacturing right now in China it's so unnecessarily complicated, but it's so good and so powerful, but they control everything. And so if they change something, then you're just kind of out of luck. And you can't really manufacture well in the United States unless you're doing it yourself. I couldn't go get something like this done. But anyways, what I was going to say is I'm thinking about using more and more carbon fiber and actually doing hand molded stuff. So that's something I'm looking into. It's really interesting, really fascinating stuff that you can use with prepreg. So I'd like to master an art like that. That would be a lot of fun because I don't have any technical, or I don't have any craftsman skills. I'm a shotgun that have dipped into many different fields, and I have no mastery of any of them. And I think it'd be really nice to master some kind of craft. So that one looks very handy for the kind of thing that I'm doing. Bella says he uses SolidWorks. SolidWorks is the big brother to Fusion 360. So, I mean, you can use it's easy to use as well, but SolidWorks is also insanely expensive. And Fusion 360 is free for hobbyists. So that's really good. Fusion 360 does have some modeling in it though, but it's not at the free level. You do have to pay, I think it's $300 per year. And I gave them money. I don't have to. I qualify for free using stuff because I don't make enough money for them to care. But I gave them the money anyway because it was just the coolest program that I've ever used before. And it does have some modeling options in it, but I'm not experienced enough to use any of them. Dice Channel says, one more question. What tool do you need to bend metals? I'm guessing you say blend metals, like aluminum. That's a great question, and one that I'm trying to figure out as well, because the answer I could give you is not the answer you're looking for. You're looking for a tool to do it. And aluminum sucks to bend. I highly recommend that you build your computer case out of steel, because you can go get a vise and some angle iron and then hammer it into the shape that you need to with no ill effects. Aluminum is not that way. If you get a stiffer grade of aluminum, like 6000 series, it's going to crack. If you get a weaker aluminum, like 5052, that's also going to crack in different expected ways. Aluminum also is something that you need to bend with the grain, which can lessen your strength unless you're using a special, press tool. So I highly recommend, if you have no experience doing it, that you go with steel to start with. It's much more forgiving. It cuts easier than aluminum as well. It's harder, obviously, duh, but I know that people are like, well, how does it cut easier? Because it is harder. So I recommend steel. It's so complicated to work with aluminum with home level tools in multiple different ways. Getting the right break is also kind of a problem. I've tried out all the Harbor Freight ones. They're all garbage, from the small ones all the way up. So you can't really go that route. You can try to find like a box and pan break on Craigslist and try to find a good one. And you can usually find some finger breaks for around $300, $400. The big problem is going there and picking it up and getting it because you're going to need a lot of friends to help you unload it. So there's not really a good, easy answer that I have. So maybe you can ask people in the comments, but I haven't found a solution yet. A tool that I really like the idea of is the Eastwood electromagnet brake, because then you don't need to use fingers. You can actually fold over and do all sorts of interesting shapes and not be limited by it. And it looks like it might be big enough for doing small projects. But and Pal says, if you go on Taobao, you can find a clone of my case. But why would you tell everybody that? Yeah, there's lots of Chinese clones of my cases. It's one of the reasons I'm not anxious to bet my house and all my money and my kids' futures on another run of minis, just in case one of the big companies, which I already know are planning to rip off my case, decides to launch it, and then I can't sell my inventory. That would be really bad. And the way manufacturing works is that storage is very expensive, right? So if I can't sell my inventory within a certain period, that becomes a problem. So I can't just buy a bunch and sit on them and sell them over time either. All right, I talked a lot, but now I need to work. So yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to adjust this. I think brass screws and twisting it is gonna probably be my best bet. But for now, that's further along. This came in the mail today, which saves me some legwork. This is 2011 V3 Narrow ILM for the Asetek cooler, because this is a Narrow ILM board, because it has a Xeon in it. Yay! It has mounting hardware. Yay! I should probably do that. That would be helpful for me. Let's see, it's gonna fit in. Yep. Put that there. It's the AMD bracket. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a trim plate. I'm just not exactly sure what this is. I don't see its purpose. Hey, Coconut Head. What a great name. How does this mount? These are interesting. These are very interesting. No instructions. No. Maybe it just goes down like that. Maybe it's so simple, I was confused. Yes, Siegfried. It also has another couple tricks up its sleeve. I'll try to share it with you guys a little bit later, but for right now, I'm just trying to get this off my desk. All right, this is gonna go like this. This is gonna go down here. Has to go down here. So this is gonna go. Needs to be as low profile as possible, so over here somewhere. Okay, that looks good. Get some NTH1. Put this tongue oil. This is an E5 2673 V4. That's Greek to me. Don't want to act like I know what the heck that is. Customer chose it, so. Another tube has run out. But that's okay. I have a drawer of them. Maybe this is like a retaining clip, so after you get it on, it doesn't pop off. Is that what this is? I think that's what this is, but it'd almost be more complicated to get on there than to just ignore it. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. I want to know how it works, what it does. I hate it. Never mind. A captive ring thingy. Yes, Rod, I'm starting to see that. Thank you for your input. And I will follow suit. Plus, I might need to adjust my tubing a little bit afterwards. So. All right, let's see if this is going to be about right. Is it going to work too much? Rotate it down one. Can I rotate down one? I can. This is really not a terrible design. I know a lot of all-in-one coolers have. The last several I had used it. And it's very nice when you have 2011. I love 2011 sockets. These actually had little springs in them. Nice. So it's compressing it appropriately. I'm grabbing the shaft so I don't end up over tightening it and causing damage. Was that enough? I think it will be enough. I can adjust it later if I need to, but I do want it pretty taut because I do not want it pressing up against the side walls too much. It's actually going to go back too, like right here. But the important thing is that they are both now together and I can move it out of my way. Coconut says, Josh, can you check out my artwork? I was in Vice Motherboard. Ooh, nice. I would love that. Can you send me an email so I can check out your stuff? You have my email? Everyone can have my email. Dice asks if I have any experience with Alphacool 40mm radiators. Like these? These are actually donated to me by viewers like you, so I really appreciate it. I need to make a video actually thanking him appropriately, so I will do that. But these are kind of cool. Alphacool. And you know what the best thing about them is? This is like a European thing, which I love. If you guys are watching from Europe, good on you. But I get candy with it. You get Alphacool gummy bears. Who doesn't like gummy bears? That's awesome. Yeah, I love it when customers, and they're always from Europe, send me candy. That's just the best. Of course, I will say, I had a guy named Steve send me beer from his brewery in America. He's from California, so that's how Americans do it. We send each other beer. But it's easier to send candy. Just sending chocolate. Remember, I live in Mississippi, so if you want to represent your country well, you probably don't want to send chocolate, because when I get it, it's going to be like a stain at the bottom of the cardboard box from it melting. But I'll still eat it. I'll still eat it. It won't hold its form anymore. Yeah, Darren, I think that they won't work out very well, but they'll work as basically passive blocks for some builds. I'm trying to come up with interesting enough one to justify using them, but they're very well made. They are the cutest little things. Very well made, I have to say. So if they are going to work, Alphacool made a good product. It's not just some cheap little tiny radiators like I thought they would be, because who's going to buy 40mm radiators? Only nut jobs. Like myself. Okay, so let's get a little bit more cleaned up over here. This over here. These standoffs go with this bracket. I think I can throw these out. I'm not going to mount it on an AM4 motherboard platform, but I tend not to throw mounting brackets out until I have multiple duplicates, and then they come in handy. I mean, it's amazing what I'll end up using. It's also amazing what I don't end up using. I moved to the curb in my shop, hundreds of pounds of metal stuff. I finally broke down and I got rid of all of my Jeep parts that I had been pack ratting for almost a decade now. Except for my tailgate. I am gonna make a real tailgate for my Jeep someday. Someday. But axles, transfer case parts, old suspension components, sway bars, alternators, all sorts of just junk, Jeep junk, Jeep dash. Just got tired and I just drove it out to the curb. So, and the junk man, we have a junk man. He comes around our neighborhood because of people like me. Every week. He was very happy because he probably got bank money and scrap steel. Yes, I have taken my Jeep to Moab, but not for real. I've driven through it. I have only taken it on one major road trip to Hidden Falls. So, but I've taken my other Jeep to Hidden Falls a lot. I've driven my other Jeep. My first Jeep was a YJ, and I drove it all across the United States of America, up to Seattle, taking a very long route. Went down the Big Sur one time. One time I went through Utah. A couple times I went through Utah. Love that thing. Love that thing so much, which is what inspired me to build the CJ. Yeah, and Utah one time I went through, it was like 15 below. It might have been 15 degrees, but I think it was 15 below, because that's how I'm going to tell the story. It was 15 below, and my YJ did not exactly have a cabin. You know, it had soft doors, soft top, wasn't sealed. It was very cold. It's very cold. And that's not my craziest Jeep story, but it's a true one-ish, because it could be 15 below or 15. So either way, very cold. Fahrenheit. Because 15 degrees Celsius would not be that cold. A tailgate? Tailgate is, you don't make it, they're for trucks. They're just basically a piece of metal that goes, boom, folds down so you can access the bed. That's what a tailgate is. Yeah, my Jeep has doors. I'm super fancy. Super fancy. It's not, like I said, they're cloth doors. And most of the year it does not. But because I was taking on a cross-country trip in the winter, I figured, you know what, maybe I'll put some soft doors on it. And I don't regret that. It was still crazy. Crazy. Also, on that trip, too, I believe my starter died. So I had to push start my Jeep all across the United States of America. You know, pushing across streets at the middle of night, trying to find a hill to park it down so I could get it started. Good times. Good times. Yes, Sigrid, that's what it's for. Some people say it's so you can load lumber in, but it's really so you can set an ice chest down and you can drink beer while shooting fish. Josh, did I overclock my Jeep? My Jeep was very overclocked. When I built my Jeep the first time, I overclocked the snot out of it. Literally, the snot out of it. And I had a 5.7 liter Chevy 350 with a T-Rex cam bored over, and it was just insane. True duals, no mufflers or anything. It was awesome sounding. Oh, that was an awesome sounding truck. And it lasted all of one afternoon. I took it for a ride in the country, and I blew the rings. They were really weird for you car guys. You'll find this interesting. You probably never heard this before because barely anybody has, and I couldn't get a good answer for it. But I was rebuilding the motor, and I was using the pistons. I found some pistons that were going to match the bore over, and they were really odd, and I couldn't get any rings to fit for them like they were supposed to fit. And then I found out through a lot of research that they were, I forget what they were called, but they were like double tapered rings. Very rare. Chevy had them like on for 2 years on certain model trucks, but I don't know what I did wrong, but I ended up blowing the rings out of the passenger side 2 cylinders, and that was it. So I decided after that I was going to go something more modest, so I just have a normal 5.7 liter 350. Anyway, and it also has caught on fire because I added one of those stupid Chinese, sorry, I'm not meaning like that. I think Chinese people make bad stuff, but a badly Chinese made inverter for powering USB, and something failed in it, and then my harness caught on fire and melted. So I was going down the road, and toxic plastic fumes are billowing out. And I pull over on the road, and there's like a homeless guy walking, and then I get out, and I get my fire extinguisher, and I'm spraying it down, but I'm doing it like this. You know, super casual, like it happens all the time. And the homeless guy turns to me and goes, "Man, he looks like you're having one of those days." And I just thought that was the funniest thing. This poor guy, and he thought that I was having a bad day. But we shared a laugh, and I got back on the road again. Anyway. What was I doing? Nothing in particular, as usual. Oh, things are such a wreck. This can go on my box of coolers, which I need to... I have now 2 boxes of coolers. I got 2 of them. Now I have none of them. The camera. Safety glasses. Don't need those. All right. So, good news. Remember my poor customer whose rig I was troubleshooting for him that had that bad 1080 Ti? Well, his friend found out and sent him a 1080 Ti, and I think that's just the coolest thing ever. That is some friend. Doesn't have a backplate. Is this one gonna work? But the cooler is on it. Dice asked me if I have a plan to make a water-cooled mini with the 40mm fans, and no, I don't, because there's a better way to do it that I'm working on. I don't know if it's ever going to be a product that you guys can buy, but I will at least be a mod once I get my life under control here. But if you wanted to shout out the Techno Edge, there you go. There's your shout out. And it was a freebie. Good. The backplate was taken off. These things just, they look nice, but they just trap heat. The PCI key. Is it the right one? It is. Very nice. I kind of wonder about the history of these cards. You know, like what was the guy doing? What was his build? I always think about what his mod was. Kind of fun to think about. But also germane to the task at hand. Yeah, this is a 1080 Ti Mini. Gotta get my test bench. This thing is so heavy. Joseph, super generous as usual, man. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you coming and watching the stream. And again, thank you very, very much for being a huge supporter of the channel. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy your evening, my friend. You will be missed. I think there is a 2080 Mini already out. I know Gigabyte announced it. I think you can buy it now. AMD hasn't announced their alternative to ray tracing. It's called DirectX 12. And AMD also, I will say, hasn't announced their answer to NVIDIA Hairworks either. Coincidence? Which project? I'm trying to make videos, but I'm so far behind. I'm filming some stuff, but don't need that one apparently. And just in case the card isn't very happy with me, I will unplug that. Wow, that can hold power for a long time. All the LEDs are still on it. That's ridiculous. They're still on. This thing has some pretty hefty capacitor storage. I'm just going to plug it in. And I couldn't drain it by trying to power on the system either. That's nuts. It's not plugged in. It's nuts. We don't know if the 40 millimeter radiators work that well. I do intend to try it out. Because that would be cool if they did. Is that gonna hold? That's not a sound that I want it to make. None of those are hot. I might have gotten one of the bad HD plugs I was testing for a customer mixed up with a good one. It's all plugged in right. All this is plugged in right. This is plugged in right. This is gonna pop. All right, let's try that again. I'm gonna get a power switch for it though, an actual power, an honest to goodness power switch. Or at least an honest power switch. That HD Plex is not happy. I can tell you that much right now. Holy cow, yeah. Cables got warm. Let's go get some replacements. Luckily, I have replacements. This motherboard is awesome, by the way, for how durable it is and have so much fault protection in it. I've done some really mean things to this poor motherboard, testing all those coolers out, and it's still alive. That's why I really highly recommend it. Let's try, so we don't know if it's the GPU or not. Let's try that. Yeah, this cable got warm too. Okay. Let's cross our fingers. No blue light on this one. What's that mean? What's that mean, guys? That kind of made a little screech too when it powered on. But it's also powering on and not hissing like a banshee. So. Signal. Come on, let's get a signal. Alright. What's that about? It's the graphics card? Did you hear that? It kind of popped and then reset when I wiggled the graphics card. Also, the fans aren't spinning on it at all. So it looks like that this graphics card might not have been a good graphics card. That's disappointing. I was really hoping, I gotta stop doing this live, you know, thinking like, oh, this could be a solution, but that's just sad. The HD Plex might have been fine, to be honest. I think this one was working a little while ago. Let's see if it's my slot. My slot finally gave out, which could be the case. This motherboard is abused. I have to retire it eventually. But when I was installing fans, this is the last one. This is a Jonesbow fan cooler. And I don't have a problem bad-mouthing companies that makes products like this. But the hardware was so bad, the mounting hardware was so bad that it actually touched metal parts in the back of the motherboard when it installed. And you have to actually shim it with tons of little cardboard shim washers, which they do include, but you think that you use 4 of them, right? No. So yeah, it shorted something, popped some fuse in this thing, blew smoke. Didn't think the motherboard was ever going to work again. Booted up like a champ next time I corrected that. And another cooler too, I don't remember which one it was, did something very similar where there was actually yellow sparks. So can't recommend this motherboard enough. Not mention the fact that, motherboards are delicate. They're not meant to install probably 50 coolers on this motherboard total over its lifetime. So I can't recommend it enough. And not to mention, how many video cards have I stuck in? This card still smells new. Smells fine. No burning. I was hoping to use another video card that wasn't a 2080 or 2080 Ti, just in case it is a slot. But this is what I have right now. Just my beater card, my 2080. Sponsored by Chad. Thank you, Chad. You are awesome. Another workhorse for me. I don't game, but ironically, this card has been even better for me because, I game on just about anything. I don't really care too much. But this is awesome for load testing. So I know this card works, or it did work. That's progress. All right, got video signal. So let's try one more time. I didn't use water necessarily, but there was some, that rusty sludge at the bottom of your air compressor when you drain it. I did coat everything in that, but let's try it again. Doesn't rattle. Everything looks fine. I got good key engagement. I could try putting some emergency scotch to keep it upright, just in case. Another workhorse of the office. No hiss. All right. Cross your fingers. No crazy hissing, but we do not have the fans spinning at all. Obviously no video, or I'd report that. And the little white LED isn't on, so That doesn't look good, guys. 2 bad TNA ATIs for my poor customer. Or I should say viewer of this channel. He did buy a Mini from me, so I guess it technically counts. I don't know what to do for this card. This card smells brand new. It smells like brand new opened GPU. But we can say a couple things that are orangish flags. We have the bracket off in the box, and we also have the backplate off. Which are, are simple mods to do. They shouldn't hurt anything, but... Like I said, it smells brand new. There is a little bit of dust from the fan blades, indicating that it was running at one point. Could be a bad HDMI port. I could try a display port. I guess I'll do that on my actual test bench, which you guys cannot see. I have seen that before, where a bad HDMI port would cause the system not to boot up when plugged in. All right. No fan spinning, unfortunately. Are you guys seeing the fans bump? Is that what you said? You saw the fans bump when I turned it on? Because if that's the case, that could be positive. Let's go into the UEFI and see what's going on. I'll move the camera. Oh, check that out, guys. It is a bad HDMI port. But the fans are also disabled. I wonder if it had a BIOS flash, and that's what happened. Because this card, you can't actually disable the fans on it. They actually run a little bit fast. So there are people on the forums uploading an AI for an AMP edition card, this giant thing. Apparently it works. You can put it in there and you can adjust the fan curve to below 30-ish%. I wonder if that's what happened. But the only way to check for that is to download software. And I'm almost out of battery and definitely out of time. So I guess this is kind of good news, guys. Good news for my dude that I'm helping out. Or I say I'm helping out, but I'm not really helping out. I'm just playing with it because I have extra stuff. But I want to thank everybody for joining me on this smorgasbord of nothing happening. I want to thank the Super Chat donors. Make sure I get them all. I know Joseph donated. Yep, and 2 more. So appreciate you guys very much. Oops, I minimized my Super Chat friends. But you guys, yeah, you guys crossed your fingers in just the right way and you saved the GPU. So congratulations. Again, I love you guys. Appreciate it. I will see you next Monday, hopefully. God willing, and the creeks don't rise. It's going to be cold tomorrow. And, yeah. So, thanks again. I'll see you guys on Discord.